Hey guys, it's Marina with Artworthy Life, where I teach Christ-centered art journaling that gets you into God's Word every day. Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to another art journaling demo. Today we have something really fun that I'm excited to work on, and I think you guys have been seeing some of the posts that I've made over the last couple of days, and a lot of you have been asking about those. So I thought today what would be fun is for me to just share some of the techniques that I've been using by creating a brand new art journal page today in my art journal. So I hope you guys enjoy this. This has been a really fun theme. If you've missed some of those posts, I've basically been taking inspiration from St. Valentine's Day and roses and church buildings and kind of just combining them all together into these really pretty art journal pages that I've really enjoyed, and I've gotten a lot of comments from you guys too. So I hope you enjoyed today's demo. That's what it's going to be about. We're going to be painting a really beautiful church that was actually sent to me as part of the challenge earlier this week. And so I'll explain that to you in just a little bit, but I want to go ahead and get us started on the right foot by reading some scripture. So while I'm getting ready to read that scripture, if you are watching right now, please go ahead and say hello and tell me where you're watching from, and specifically tell me what time zone you are in, because I'm normally on Pacific time, but today I'm on Central time. So if you're new here, I have art journaling every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, 12:30 Central, and 1:30 Eastern, right here on Artworthy Life. And you can catch me every week to get some more art journal demos just for your weekly inspiration. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and read a scripture that has to do with love, because we are in the love month, and it is from Psalm 143, and it's verse am I in the wrong one or am I in the right one? Yes, okay, that's the right one. Okay, 143:8. I was looking at the wrong side of the book. I was like, I know I opened the right page. Okay, so this is from Psalm 143:8, and I'm just going to read that to you guys real quick to get us started on the right foot. So say hello. This verse actually doesn't use the word love. It uses the word loving kindness, which is almost like a more active, almost a more active form of the word love. If anybody wants to do a little extra for us, go Google the definition for loving kindness and post it in the comments. Happy Friday, Daniel. Good morning and good afternoon. Thank you. Good morning to you. Okay, so the verse says, "Cause me to hear thy loving kindness in the morning, for in thee do I trust. Cause me to know the way wherein I should walk, for I lift up my soul unto thee." Of course, it's talking to God. So it's really actually a great verse to read in the morning, because it talks about what our posture should be as soon as we get up in the morning. So I hope that verse is encouraging to you guys. I'm going to read it one more time just because I went through it pretty fast the first time. "Cause me to hear thy loving kindness in the morning, for in thee do I trust. Cause me to know the way wherein I should walk, for I lift up my soul unto thee." So just a really great verse. Psalms are always good for encouraging us and showing us the way we should be thinking on a daily basis. And I really, really love that one. It's been really fun looking up verses that have to do with love, because like the whole theme of the Bible is how much God loves us. So it's almost hard to pick because there's so many verses about love. Aside from just like the normal ones, like love one another and husbands love your wives. Husbands love your wives, not love your lives. That's not right. Okay. Alrighty. If you are wanting to follow along, let me just tell you really quick what supplies you might need. And if you don't have any of these supplies, go ahead and just use what you have on hand. So basically you just need pencil and paper. You might need some colors. But this is exactly what I'll be using, so that if you'd like to follow along, you can follow along exactly. And if you don't have these supplies and you do want to follow along exactly with what I'm using, you can always watch the replay, because this will get posted afterwards. So the first thing you should have is, yeah, Daniel, that is a good one, isn't it? It's so refreshing. It's almost like, yeah, I like that verse a lot. Okay, so you should have an art journal with you and a pencil if you don't already have some kind of a mechanical pencil. With an eraser would be helpful. And you want something to mix your paints in if you're using watercolors. And I just have a plate because whenever I'm traveling, it's hard to pack a good palette. So I just grab whatever plate is nearby and we use that. So I've been using it all week, as you can tell. And then you want to have your watercolor set with you. I use, while I'm on the go at least, I use this Como Rebi Watercolor Palette, and I'm going to try not to dump it while I'm showing it to you. It's by Mozart. I think that one you can get on Amazon. And then I'm also going to use a different kind of watercolor paintbrush today, which is going to be a water brush. These are what I like to use when I'm traveling because they're a lot cleaner and you don't have to have a jar of water with you. The water is contained in the pen. All right, so enough with the preliminaries. Oh, also a watercolor cloth. You'll need that with you as well. Okay, or a paper towel, whatever you have on hand. My phone is drifting around because my hand is my phone stand for today. So I apologize if it drifts. Please poke me or send a message if I suddenly drift off screen and you can't see what I'm doing anymore. But I will do my best to hold it straight. So what's exciting about today's image is that it is based on a photo that was sent in by one of you guys. So on before Valentine's Day, I asked you guys to send me photos of churches that you loved, either ones that you've visited or one that you've been to, or one that you currently go to. So just one that you've been to. And I got several submissions, so thank you guys for sending those in. Of course, we know the winner has already been announced, and we sent her a congratulations. Her photo was absolutely gorgeous. But you guys sent me such good ones that I couldn't resist painting another one. So this one is actually, okay, the definition. So Daniel sent us the definition of loving kindness, which says tenderness and consideration toward others. So isn't that sweet? Like we like when we're teaching kids at church, we like to say that words that have like two parts are almost easier to learn because you can take them apart, break them apart, and find out the meaning, even though it's a super long word. So little kids are like, what is loving kindness? It's got like 4 syllables. But you can break it down and that makes sense. Great. Thank you for sharing that. So this photo, what I was getting around to is this art journal page for today is based on one of the other photos that was sent in that I didn't end up choosing as the winner of the challenge. But I thought I had to paint it anyway. I was planning on painting it anyway because it's absolutely beautiful. And it was sent in by, I should actually show it to you. So drum roll in the comments. And then I'll tell you who sent it in. And hopefully it's a she. Hopefully she will see it at some point. But here's what the photo actually looks like. It's beautiful. Look at this. And I don't know that she actually took this photo, but she, I believe, has been here. So I told her, you might want to watch today's live because I'm going to be showing your church photo. So that's the church that she sent in, the photo of the church she sent in. And the person who sent that in was Teresa Untitled, who sent me actually 2 pictures of churches, and they were both beautiful. And I almost picked one of them, but I ended up choosing the other photo of that gorgeous castle-looking church, just beautiful. So that's going to be today's, because isn't that picture gorgeous? It was almost too pretty to not choose. And let's see, I think she also told me the name of the church. I should have pulled that up first. Let me tell you the name of that church. Where is it? Okay. Oh, they're in Norway, but they're in the Lofoten Islands. I don't know how to say that. They told me it's hard to pronounce the words in Norway. So anyway, she didn't know the name of the church, and I don't know when she watches it. Oh, Daniel, she did take that picture. I am so impressed. It's gorgeous. That photo is unbelievable. Okay, well now we know. So she's the actual photographer that took that photo, and we're gonna paint that today. It won't be as beautiful as the photo, but it will be inspired by the photo. How fun! Okay, very cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull her picture up so I can see it, and then just bear with me as I get that set up, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. So I wanted to show you guys that picture ahead of time so you can see that's the image I'm looking at, but the painting in the end isn't going to look just like that, because the style I was going for is more like the impression of the photo rather than all the detail. Even though all the detail would be really fun to paint, it would take a really long time. So I don't do that very often. So what we're going to start with is the background of the church. So with watercolors, a lot of times you want to start with the lightest colors first, and then work your way toward the darker colors. So I'm going to kind of move my camera over here so you guys can see. Here's all my crazy palette colors. I have kind of a skin tone over here that I've worked on over this whole week. So it's basically like white mixed with a little bit of brown, mixed with a little bit of pink. Basically, you're just going for a skin tone color. And we're going to use that for the background of this church because it has a base color of a really soft white. And then what you'll notice is I'm using a big brush, and I am not filling everything in all the way. And I'm just going to kind of keep glancing at the picture to try to get an idea of where all this is going. So what we want is just the color to be there mostly. God created a beautiful brain in our heads that fills in the gaps even when something isn't fully drawn out perfectly. So have you ever been like looking at a pile of laundry and all of a sudden you think there's a dog laying there, or you look at a shadow on the wall and it looks like a face or something like that? I think they call that personifying or personification or something. It's what our brains do. It tries to find a face in almost everything. And that's just a really cool thing that our brain does. And it also does it with other shapes as well. So familiar shapes like architecture or like a church building like this one is going to make sense to our head, even if we don't have all the details, which is good news for us artists because we don't have to paint in all the details and our brains will go ahead and fill it in. So what I'm doing now is I'm filling in all that skin tone color basically, and then I'm looking at the photo and I'm looking for all these dark areas. So this is the first key thing I wanted to tell you guys is you're just getting the color on the page and you're looking for shadow and slight changes in color. You're going to look at those slight changes in color and exaggerate them a little bit so that your eye can see the shape. So basically we have a shadow here. We have some shadow right there, and in a couple of other places. And so I'm just going to take that skin tone color, darken it up just a little bit. I'm not even grabbing new color from my palette. I'm just using what's already there. And then, oops, let me move my camera so you can see. And then I'm just dropping in some more color on those sides that need more shadow. And that will help the building take shape. The building will start to look more like it has 3 dimensions to it. And you can add this in areas where it's not necessarily showing up super strong on the photo. I do that so that I can see it. That looks pretty good to me. It really doesn't take a lot. Look how basic that is. It looks super simple. What helps is that I already have all these pencil lines. And what I didn't show is that I traced the photo ahead of time. So I didn't freehand this. You could if you want to, but that takes a long time too. And it's easier just to trace it. So I went ahead and traced it. And then now I'm going to start filling in some, I'm going to fill in some of the shapes. So let me show you the other page. Here's the page I have opposite this page. This page is going to be my color inspiration. This is a chart of rose colors that I did yesterday and a bouquet. And what was really fun with this page is it was part of our Art Journal Club's Wednesday challenge. And one of the Wednesday challenges was to paint a bouquet of flowers and choose a color for each flower and then pray for an individual based on the color of each flower, because roses have a meaning behind each color. So I went and looked up the meaning of each color, and based on the meaning of the color of the rose, I chose someone to pray for. I didn't write their names down, but I did write just a description. Like here, white represents new beginnings. So I was praying for a friend who's been recently married. So it was a really fun challenge. But anyway, I'm going to use that as inspiration for the color over here, so that when these pages open up against each other, they have kind of complementary things going on. So there's a lot of this dark emeraldy green, and I'm going to start kind of filling that in over here. Now, I haven't decided. I think I'm still going to incorporate some of those roses, but I haven't quite decided how to do that yet. I think I'm going to go ahead and put some like over here. So what I did with, a lot of you loved, go ahead and put a flower in the comments if you saw the roses, anything that I did this week with roses around the buildings. Put a flower in the comments. And if you didn't see it, put a sad face in the comments. That way I know somebody didn't see my post. Okay, so I'm gonna what I'm gonna do to give the roses a place to sit is take my eraser. So I've already kind of traced out this building, and I want them to sit around the building and bleed into basically the area where the building already is. And so I'm gonna start over here and kind of erase a little circle area. Maybe another little spot over here, because I don't want those pencil lines to compete with my roses. Okay, so now I know I'm going to kind of put some roses there. I'll erase this down here as well. In the photo, this is all greenery. It's actually like super dark greenery over here. So I'm not really losing anything by doing that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is do some of those super simple roses. They are simple, but they take a little bit of thinking ahead of time to get them right. So I have a lot of color choices here, and I think I'm just going to start with a pink one because that's the pretty one. I like the pink, and I'm going to use a real light, watered down, almost nothing, like a white or a pinkish white that has been watered down so much it's almost not even there. So I'm squeezing my brush to get a lot of water out. And then I'm going to start with the outside of this flower. And basically you're just doing, I'm getting the outside petals drawn to get the size of the rose first, like that. And then I just want to get some smaller petals on the inside. Normally I go from the inside to the outside to paint these, but I really wanted to get the outside of the flower done first. So I just did that real quickly, but all I did was just basically some little curvy lines going around into a little swirl. And now I'm going to take a darker pink, and wherever that's wet, I'm going to drop in some more color to create the shape of the rose into a little circle all the way around. This is a really abstract rose, and it's meant to be. So if this kind of makes you tick or you don't love the look of it, feel free to go more realistic. Do your own thing. That's fine. Okay, then on the center, I'm going to darken it up even more, and then I like to wait a little bit to let the center dry to do a little bit more detail, because otherwise you get way too much water going on. But I'm just going to drop in a little bit darker color while this is wet. I'm doing it wet on wet to make sure that the color blends nicely. But look, that's going to give us a little rose right there. Isn't that cute? Okay, we're going to do another one over here. I'm just going to start wetting this area. I'll make this one maybe a peachy colored rose. And I'm going to do those little swirls coming down to the center. And this time I'm going to grab a little bit more orange and mix it with my pink. And then drop that in there. And it's not really any super strict rule about how to draw that. I'm just basically going around in a circle until I get down to the middle. And then once I get to the middle, I darken up my color a little bit more. I'm going to grab some more orange and pink. I still haven't used anything outside of my plate. I'm using up old colors. One of the things I love about watercolors, they're one of the least wasteful mediums because you can just keep reactivating them and reactivating them. Okay, so there's two little roses. I want to put one up here to kind of balance this out. I'm going to use yellow this time. So I'm going to start with a super, super light yellow, like almost white yellow. So I'm watering down my yellow a ton. And I'm going to do a little flower back here. And then swirl that around into a little spiral. And I know that's really light for you guys. You can't see, but it's the same thing we were just doing, but I'm doing it with yellow, so it's a little harder to see. So now I'm adding a darker yellow to emphasize those petals going around in circles. And now I'm going to use a real dark yellow. When you're doing a yellow rose, the center of the rose is not going to be yellow. It's going to be like brown or orange, and it'll seem weird to use that color because you'll be like, but my flower is supposed to be delicate and yellow. But if you don't have those dark colors, it's not going to, you're not going to be able to see the dimension in the flower. So be brave, use your dark colors. I'm always telling my art journalers, be okay with using dark colors. If you don't use the dark colors, you won't be able to see the light colors. They won't show up very well. Okay, and I'm just going to blend out these outer edges a little bit. Okay, so now see these pink flowers down here have dried. I'm going to grab a darker mauve color, almost like a dark rose color, and then do the very center of those flowers. And I'll probably keep adding to these as I go. I always end up adding more than I think I'm going to. Layers and layers of color. But that's the beauty of it. You can just wait for it to dry, look and see if you like it, and if you don't, you can come back and add more. I'm just adding a darker layer of color there. That'll make those roses stand out a little bit better. Okay, this little house over here in the corner is looking a little bit pale, so I'm going to go ahead and give it some color too and darken it up with the darker shade of that skin tone color. It's actually turning kind of pink, but that's okay because it's right next to a pink flower, so it should be fine. Okay, so now I'm going to look at this now that this is dried, and I'm switching to my bigger brush because I like to have a little less control. That seems weird, but I like to have a little less control when I'm doing this style, because the more controlled it is, the more tempted I am to make it really detailed, and I don't want it to be really detailed, so I'm going to try to avoid that. And I'm using that mixture of like a skin tone and a little bit of gray. I'm just going to come in and darken up some of these sides of the building. And I can kind of come up underneath some of these eaves as well. At this point, I'm straying from the photo a little bit because I need more than what the photo is giving me for dimension. But that's okay. I'm just kind of going on the same side, putting all the shadow on the same side. There's a little spot over here that doesn't have any color. And it looks really messy and not perfect, which is okay because it looks free and kind of, what do you call that? Abstract. It's called abstract. Okay, let me look back at the photo for reference. All right, so that's looking pretty good. So what I want to do is just darken up these little corners a little bit more. I'm adding purple to my tan at this point because there's a lot of purple in the shadows of this photo, and I want to emphasize that a little bit. So I'm adding some purple to this tan and just going in the darkest color. So one of the things I do say when I'm teaching people how to add shadows like this is when you're adding your darker shadows and you're going darker and darker and darker, remember not to put any of your darkest colors where you haven't already put a shadow, because basically you're just darkening up the places that are already dark. You're making them a little darker. So look where you already have shadow and just add a smaller shadow on top of that where you already have the shadows. Because if you suddenly put a dark spot on a really light spot, you're going to go, why is that even there? You can darken all of your light areas if they start to look really pale, but you need to darken all of them at the same time if you do that. So like I can come across here and add a little bit more tan to these other areas. Just kind of help them out a little bit. But that's about all you need to do. It doesn't have to be really, really in depth. Okay. I think I missed a spot. I missed a spot right here up underneath this roof. There's some really cool detailing right there. Almost missed that. And I want to make sure I didn't miss any other spots. Let me darken that up a little because there's a little shadow right there. All right, so now that that's done, we're going to do the roof. The roof is really nice because it's a deep blue. And I just did, on the other church painting I did that was the winner of the challenge, that paint or that photo had a really cool dark almost bluish roof as well. So I'm going to use a blue, but I'm going to make it lean toward violet. So let's see, I'm going to use this Payne's gray, which is like a gray blue. I should have you over here so you can see. I'm mixing up a Payne's gray with some deep blue out of my palette. And I'm just mixing it right into the purple that was already on my palette. And I'm going to water this down a bunch. So I'm just going to squeeze this out and water that down so that I start with a super light color. Because you can always darken it up, but it's hard to lighten up watercolors once you've put them down on the page. So now we're just going to start by adding this dark color onto this roof. And there's a really light white spot here, so I'm just going to leave that white. Try to leave it white at least, and then fill in the rest. I'm going to dry my brush off because it's a little too wet. Like that. And then I'm going to, now that that's wet, I'm going to take my darker color, load my brush up, and drop it in from this area on this side. Just where I see that it's darker over here. And I might want to go ahead and fill that in a little more. Okay, I'm going to let that start to dry a little bit. Oh, I need to use my bigger brush. I'm going to go ahead and use my bigger brush, water this down a little bit, and we're going to go across all these roofs with this blue. It's kind of a gray blue. Oops, that doesn't go there. I love watercolors. They're easy to clean up. That I put in the wrong spot and just clean it up with my finger. And then this little roof here. This one here. I'm also, if you'll notice, leaving lots of space. There's no need to perfectly fill in everything with a painting like this. And then there's a little roof over here. Okay, so now that I have the color down, I'm going to come over here and get some darker purple. This purpley blue, I need a little bit more blue and a little bit more of the Payne's gray. And then with that, I'm going to come on the darker side. So anywhere in that photo where I see some darker shadow, I'm just going to come in and add that. So on the right, it's mostly on the front side of these buildings or these pieces of this one building. This church has so many different angles to it. It's really neat. Can kind of go on. There's a cool angle here that I want to emphasize. I'm not sure if I can. It's an interesting angle right there. Maybe like that will work. Okay. That roof is coming out at an odd angle. Then over here, some of these are shadows. Some of these are looking like the roof is actually maybe a slightly darker color, but I can't quite tell. Doesn't really matter as long as I'm getting the general color down. This one down here is almost completely in a shadow, so it's even darker. And this one back here is as well. And we're just going to keep repeating this process. I'm going to switch to my smaller brush at this point, because right now I have all of the really big places that need color. And now I just need to fill in some darker shadows. So I'm still using a mix of that deep blue with Payne's gray, and I'm going to add a little bit of violet to it to make, sometimes if you want a blue to look really rich, if you add just a touch of violet to it, it like makes it really pop. Okay, and I feel like using a purple for these roofs. I said it about the other photo as well. It makes it look like Cinderella's castle or something. Just has that, I don't know if it has that castle look somehow when it turns, when you turn it purple, it just has that look. Okay, now I'm just looking for those really dark shadows and filling that in. And a lot of times I play at this for a long time. I'm going to try to keep this simple. Just keep kind of looking at the picture and going, okay, does that need to go darker? Is this good? One thing I do want to make sure I do is get both sides of the roof line. So there's a roof line over here and a roof line right here. So I'm going to try to get up under those. And I'm also going to do that with the edge of this one here. I'm just going to go ahead and do it with all of these. This one over here has this neat little something sticking out. So I'm going to try to draw that. Sometimes you don't have to get the whole shape. You just have to get a point or something there so you can see there's something going on. Okay, right up under here. Okay, I'm going to attempt this angle one more time. So interesting. It's like leaning back some. I don't know. Maybe like that. Okay. It's one of the reasons I go ahead and trace it is sometimes those angles are so odd. And that gives you quite a head start if you're going to fill it in. Okay. And now I'm going to fill in this back area a little darker because that's really covered by a lot of shade. Getting a little bit more purple to do that. Fill that in right there. Okay. Oh, I have one over here. I'm like, where is that? This little area over here is in the dark and it has a little building and I don't want it to get lost. Okay, there's a little building. There's I'm going to add some gray because that building is just in the dark there. Okay, I'm adding some pretty dark color now. And like I said earlier, sometimes that freaks people out because they're like, I like the light airiness of the watercolors, but this dark shadows will really, really help you see the lighter colors. Oh, I just missed a comment. Daniel is saying he's 99% positive that this church is called, I don't know how to say that, vegan? Vegan church. I don't know how to say Lofoten Cathedral on those islands, however you say that. Largest wooden cathedral and the biggest church in northern Norway. Wow, I can believe it. Just from the photo, you can tell it's massive. It's really, really big. And it has all these little sections. That's so cool. Thank you for sharing. I don't know. I don't know what you call, well, I guess Norwegian would be the style of the architecture, but it has these really light walls and then wooden detail that like goes up and down, almost like a Tudor style building, but it's not like that. It is a different kind of shape. So really interesting. And the window, it looks like I'm not sure, but it looks like a hexagon almost. So I don't know. Did you guys actually go to that church or just take a photo of it from a distance? That photo looks like it belongs on a postcard. It's amazing. Hopefully Teresa will see this later and be able to fill us in on whatever I'm missing. All right, I need to fill in a little bit more shadow on these roofs. So I'm just gonna do that really fast. A couple of spots. Sometimes it's a little hard. One thing you want to do is, try to remember to quit while you're ahead. If you feel like things already look good, don't overdo it. I have a hard time with that. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, just a little bit more. Oh, that was too much. But it's better to stop while it's looking good than to overdo it. And I don't think it's quite where I want it to be yet, so I'm going to keep adding until I feel like, okay, that looks good. A little under here, and a little under here. And if you like it way lighter, then just leave it way lighter. It's okay. There's no rule about you have to get everything perfect. Okay. I'm going to kind of darken up some of these lighter spots. All right, that's looking pretty good. And you can see I'm trying to leave it a little bit lighter than the actual photo shows. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and start adding some of the other detail because I want to get the whole impression of the whole photo and then be able to add in some more stuff. So to do that, now the other paintings that I've done didn't have as much landscape and stuff in the background, so I'm not sure how much of this I'm going to include, but I am going to go ahead and do some of the flowery stuff because I liked the roses, so I'm going to try to incorporate that over here as well. So I'm going to keep adding a few flowers, and there are some white flowers that I painted in this bouquet. So I'm going to give those a little spot. Maybe, where do I want to put it? Maybe right here. So it's just like nestling them. I need to erase some of these pencil lines. Nestling them around the church building and almost making them just crowded out a little bit. So I'm going to wet this area over here in the like a little swirly motion. And then use some darker browns and pinks to create the center of the flower. And then I'm just going to water down the outside edge of this flower so it sort of starts to just melt into the outside edges. Okay, and then I want to show you this one. See how this church has these little little fronds, I don't even know what to call that, little bits of flower and leaves and stuff kind of dripping off the sides. And then this one, whoops, over here has the same thing. I'm going to keep with that same type of look over here. So, but first I need to give it a foundation to kind of sit on. So to do that, I'm going to start with, I do still want to have some of this mountain here and some of this landscape. So I'm going to start with a green that pulls some of the olivey green and gray out of here and use that as the grass out in the front. So the green that I'm going to use is this olive green. I think it's called olive green. Yeah, olive green. And I'm going to water it down a ton. The key to this, to keep it loose, is to water your colors down a lot to start off with, and then just gradually deepen them up. Okay. And one thing about this picture in particular, and this landscape, is it goes from this super sunny, like super warm, sunny stuff to this really deep green stuff over here. And it just has this really elegant, sunny look to it, the whole thing. And I think it starts over here a little bit further, but I'm going to just pretend like it starts a little sooner because I want to include it a little closer. I'm going to kind of move this mountain. Hey, see, if you have faith, you can move mountains, right? No. That's what the Bible says, but that's not what I'm doing right now. I am using a pencil to move mountains, but you know, God does say that. Okay, so I'm going to use the hill that's over here in this photo. Let me show you what I'm looking at. There's a hill over here, and it's kind of sunny, and then it just is super warm and sunny, and then goes into these really deep green shadows over here. It's just super well composed photo. Beautiful. All right, so I'm going to use super watered down olive green, almost no color in it at all, and I'm just going to fill in this whole area here which is part of that hill and landscape. And this is not going to be a perfect hill right there. The goal is just to get this color down, but I'm using a ton of water to spread the color out and then pulling it all the way across. And as I come over here, I'm going to use a little bit more green. I'm going to start talking fast because I'm painting fast. And bring that all the way over. Probably going to erase these pencil lines here in a minute. Now I'm going to get a little bit more of this deeper green, more emeraldy colors. I'm just going to start filling in some deeper greens over here. I want this edge not to be perfectly crisp either. So I'm just going to kind of water that down. And to do that, I just add I squeeze my brush and add some water, and I'm just going to let that edge disappear. And I will erase that pencil mark here if I can get it erased in a minute. And now I'm going to drop in a little bit more green. I'm using that straight from my palette. And I want to do this while all this is wet. That's why I'm not able to talk properly right now, because I'm trying to get it all in while it's wet. And drop in some of the darker green right there. Just filling that in. A little bit more over here. I'm going to add a little bit of that green across this way to show a little bit more of the bushes and stuff. And it doesn't have to be super dark, but I do want some darker shadows around the flowers toward the bottom of the church building, as if there's like bushes and things kind of growing up around here. And a little bit more over here. And then this area is really sunny, so I'm just going to actually grab some pink and make some pink stuff happen over here. Ah, so pretty. Okay, I love those colors. Ah, look at that. Oh, I love it. 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 I'm going to move this around a little bit. I'm using mostly water. Down here, I'm using a lot of water to pull that color down. Oh, I like this a lot already. Wow. Okay, so that needs to dry. While that's drying, I'm going to think about what I want down here. I think I'm going to do some flowers down here. This church building has a lot going on already, but let's just do a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to do, maybe I just want to, I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm going to do a flower. Okay, I'm going to do a big flower over here. Big rose. This one's huge, so you can see in comparison a lot bigger. I'm doing the outside edge of it right now. And then I'm going to do a little swirl. Kind of bring it in toward the center. I'm doing it all with water. And then I'm just going to slowly, I don't know why I say that. Every once in a while I say I'm gonna. It's like I'm gonna. Like my tongue gets going too fast. Okay. Then we're going to do a little bit of darker pink around in a swirl. Make it go closer and closer to the center. I'm using my big brush, so it's not super detailed right now, which is okay. I kind of want it loose right here. Now I'm going to switch to my smaller brush, and I'm going to get some more of that rosy pink. Still haven't used a ton from my palette, although I'm starting to. There we go. Now I'm going to go to my palette right as I say that. Okay. Just need a little bit more orange in my pink. It was a little bit too purple. And now I can kind of do some darker edges on these petals. These petals are very loose and imperfect. They're just swirls. Just swirls. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit more on the middle there. Hi, Valerie. I'm so glad you're watching today. Wish I could stay for the finish, but Aaron's call. Miss you too. Thank you so much for popping on. You should tell me if you have thought about sending in a picture of a church building. Have you ever painted a church building before? I know my friend in Tennessee, Debbie, actually collects them. So she loves cardinals and she loves churches. So one of my projects, I think I posted that a while back, was to paint her a painting that combined both of those. So it was a cardinal sitting on a branch above a scene with the church in it. So that was really fun. Thank you for popping on. Oh, Daniel says the church was closed the day we were in that area. It would have been super cool to be there on a Sunday, though. Yes, that would have been amazing to attend Mass. Yeah, I can only imagine. It must have been beautiful. Did you get to at least go up to it, or was that as close as you could get to it, where that photo was taken? It's so pretty. And it's amazing. It looks like it's out in the middle of nowhere. So I think it's amazing that it's such a big, or the biggest church, because it doesn't look like there's anybody nearby to go to it. I assume that that's deceiving, but it looks like it's just perched in a gorgeous wilderness. Okay, I'm adding a little bit more to that flower than it really needs, but I wanted to give it some more detail. And then to match that, I'm just going to come back over to the other roses with some of my red. I'm over here mixing reds and not letting you guys see. Sorry. There you go. And then I'm going to darken up the center of these roses as well, to show that they're in the same painting as the other one. Just like shadows, flowers, oftentimes you need to darken them up or add more layers of color or whatever. As you add it to other flowers, you've got to balance it out by doing it to the original flowers as well. So I'm adding shadow to pull in all of the dark that we have on that bigger rose. I'm going to do a little bit more on the yellow rose as well. All right, that's turning out really nice. So look how soft all those watercolors are around the church building. I'm going to look back at these other ones just for consistency's sake and see what all I did. I really like these dripping, they almost look like wisteria or something around the front of it. And I think I'm going to go with that look. I really like that. So let me add another rose over here really quick, so there's not just one in this corner. I'm going to add a kind of a peachy colored rose. Water down my brush a little so that it spreads out. And then bring that around some more. Circle. Okay, now I'm going to grab a darker yellow, and I'm going to use my lemon yellow mixed with yellow ochre, which has that like tan, almost saddle leather color, and that's what I'm going to use for the middle of this rose to darken it up. Like I said, it feels odd to use a color like that because sometimes it seems too brown or too dark or too orange. But if you don't use a color like that, it's not going to bring out those shadows, which are really important. Wow, I really like how this color is all bleeding into itself. All right, next I'm going to paint this grayish colored mountain back here. And I'm going to be careful not to make the gray close to the color of the steeple because I really want that steeple to stand out. And I know I'm going to have another layer of color behind that even. So I'm going to just make sure that as I paint this, it's a little different from the church building in front of it. I'm using my biggest brush, and I'm going to keep this really simple and not do a lot of detail on this part of the painting. In fact, that's probably enough right there. Can maybe add a little bit of darker shadow to this side because I know it's going to dry a little lighter. Maybe a little darker shadow to the edge that borders the hill in front of it. just so they kind of stand out from each other. This makes me want to go ski. Oh man, I was looking at a video of this little kid that was skiing, and I guess his parents had mic'd him while he was skiing. It was one of those reels or something. And he kept saying all these cute little things while he was mic'd. And I thought, oh dear, if I were ever mic'd while I was skiing, I don't know that I'd ever want someone to play the recording. Not because I'd say anything bad, but just because I'd say so many weird things. And yeah, I'm just constantly telling myself, you're okay, you're okay. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fine. My recording would sound funny. Okay, I'm adding some darker blue to this edge right here, but that's just basically to make sure that the hill in front of it is more visible. So I'm not trying to draw any landscape features or anything like that, just darkening it up a little. And then there's a little bit, I just realized there's part of the hill over here. So I'm going to take some of the olive green that we used earlier, just a little bit of it, and I'm going to draw that hill in, and your eye will go, oh wow, look, the rest of the hill. See, it's over here. It really should be darker actually, because this is the side of the painting that's darker. Okay, I'm going to add some dark green now that I've thunk about it a little bit. Okay, there's the edge of that. Isn't that pretty? Ooh, I may not even do the sky behind it. I haven't decided. Okay, now we need some of those wisteria things going on. I wonder if I want to have I'm deciding as I talk to you guys. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the water in front here. Just going to do a little bit of this edge here. I'm going to add some purple. Ooh. Yeah, I think I like that. And then I'm going to add some green. I don't think this needs to be fully painted. I just traced it out while I was looking at the photo and thought it looked really pretty. And I agree with myself, so I'm going to go ahead and paint it. Mostly I'm just pulling this color down. That's what I mainly want to do. And then there's some rocks down at the front. They're kind of pink, actually. They're kind of a pinky purple color. So I'm going to go ahead and paint those too. And this is an art journal, so a lot of this will probably get covered by text. So I'm not really worried about this all being painted perfectly. And I want to leave a lot of white space because I like the lightness of it. So it doesn't need to be painted in perfectly like that. But I am going to add color, make sure that looks really soft. So notice I'm still using the same colors I have over here, still pulling in those same blues and purples and greens. And then as I'm painting around these flowers, I'm using the background colors to help shape the flowers. That's one thing you'll notice I'm doing if you watch carefully. And then there's an edge to this little river here. That's what this is a little, well, I don't know. Is it a river or a lake? It's some kind of waterway. Oh, okay. So you guys don't remember if you walked right up to it. Well, it's very pretty. If you were able to, that would be so cool. All right, this edge needs to be a little darker just to emphasize that it kind of drops off. Those are basically rocks, but I'm making them a little bit more like a river's edge. Okay, and then the last thing is I want to give it a little reflection off this water, and then your eye will be like, oh, look, that's water. Look, here is water. I always want to quote that from Acts 8. Okay, here is the light tan color we used earlier, and I'm just pulling it straight down from where that church building is. And then next to that, I'm going to use the same color I used for the mountain. Needs to be more blue. I need a bit more blue. Maybe more gray. I should really have done that while I painted the mountain, so I'd end up with the same color. So there's the reflection. Doesn't really need to be perfect. I'm just kind of giving it the idea of the edge there. Okay, most of this is going to get covered up as I add extra details, but that was just to kind of get the idea of all that down there. Now I'm going to switch to my smaller brush again and grab some more of these darker pinks. I love just grabbing whatever's on the palette. It's fun. It's exciting. It's hard to match. That's the only problem, but it's exciting. Okay, now we can do a little bit more detail on these roses. I know it seems like I just keep adding and adding, but that's what gives them depth. So we want to add those darker colors into these roses here. And you'll notice this color I'm only putting in the very center. Of those little roses there. All right, now I'm going to look back at this church building and see how we can make the details come out a little bit more. I'm going to use brown, but I don't like brown. For these paintings that I've been doing, I've been trying to avoid straight brown. So I'm going to use a brown mixed with pink. And that's what I'm going to use for the details. I do want to make sure my color is nice and rich. So in other words, not a lot of water for this part. Because if there's too much water, it will come up way too white. And I'm trying to keep the color solid. Okay, now we're gonna do, if I can manage to do it with my big fat brush. I have my big brush with me instead of my more detailed brushes that I have at home. Okay, I do want it a little lighter than that, so I'm going to lighten that up a little. And then I'm just going to try to add the wooden things they've got going on. I don't know what you call those. There's probably a word for that. Like a Tudor style house has those beams and things. Do this on the edge. I like these lines because it'll make the church look more finished, but I also don't like them because sometimes it makes it look too outlined. So what I try to do, if you want to avoid that, avoid it looking like a coloring book or like you've just outlined it with a pen or something, is leave some space between the lines. Just leave, like this line isn't going to touch the roof necessarily. As I do this little detail here, I try to keep it from totally touching the roof. And see how I don't bring that all the way down. I just kind of let it hover there. So it's there, but it's not real solid, the line. That keeps it looking light and airy. Because it is airy. There's air, space between it. All right, there's an edge. So this has like windows on the edge, but those are behind the rows. So I'm going to leave that. And then there's some more up here on the tower part. Another thing is really pay attention when you're looking at color, because sometimes your eyes are like, oh, look, that's a window. Well, that's going to have to be blue. But these windows up here, I don't know if it's because of the way the sun is hitting them or what, they're actually the color of these beams. So I'm going to use that color in a little bit when I outline the windows. And it'll probably end up looking warmer and nicer anyway. Okay, there's some detail here. I'm going to try to add a little bit of detail here and there. I think I'll use this around the edge of the window. Here, I'm going to go a little darker with this now. I'm coming back over. There's like a weird corner over here. I'll go ahead and fill that in. I don't know why that's there, but there we go. Okay, now here's some windows. Windows are just like a brush stroke, pulling it down. And here's a window. Here's a window, a window. I do want to make them vertical, but they don't have to be detailed. This one's kind of rectangular. Okay. They're like long, skinny windows. It almost looks like they have a curve at the top, so I'm trying to not lose that. Here's a circular window and some square windows. There's some square windows. My brush is a little bigger than I'd like to be using, but I'm making it work. That's another reason these are more abstract, because I don't have a detailed brush. And it's probably a good exercise to try to loosen up and do some more abstract looking paintings. Always good to loosen up a little, huh? Okay, there's a window over here that I missed, and one down here. That's looking pretty cute. I like it. So now I'm going to come back to my color, darken it up a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit more brown, maybe a touch of black just to make it nice and dark, or even dark blue, whatever, to make it darker. And with that darker color, I want to be real careful with this, just get it on the very tip of my brush. I'm just going to look for those real dark shadows and fill those in. And there are a few of them. Most of them are kind of up under the eaves of the building and in the corners. And I can kind of put a little bit in the windows as well, just a tiny bit. Up under the roof line again. Sometimes when you're adding shadow, it's like, oh, I thought I was done with that section. Oh, now it looks like it needs more because you've added it to other areas. So then you think you need to go a little bit more. Sorry, I'm at an angle. I'm having to rest my hand while I'm adding in these extra things. Okay, and then up under the roof. And the edge again here. I think that's looking pretty good. What do you guys think? More shadow, or are we looking good? Almost to the quit while you're ahead point. Not quite yet. I like going up under all of these little roofs. It just instantly makes it, oh wow, that's what I was looking for. Maybe over here. Look how that comes together like that. I'm even using some of this on the roof, which seems odd, but it's working. I think I like that. Wow, that's fun. Okay, so that's looking really good. I'm going to use some of this darkest red color. It's like a dark brownish red, and I'm going to come back on my roses again. Why? Because, excuse me, wow, because the church is darkened. The shadows on the church are darkened, so now we need to darken the roses a little bit. I almost lost my voice. Sorry, guys. Okay, that one's going to go little darker too. And then of course we'll come down here as well. Look how that balances it out. Might even bring that out a little further here. My flowers are starting to look like poppies, but you know, that's okay. These ones down here are really wobbly, but that's okay. All right, let me make sure I'm not missing any comments from you guys. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. The last thing I want to do before this gets really detailed is start adding some of those wisteria looking things. And those just kind of start up underneath the churches that I've been doing, and they spill out. And I feel like they finish the painting really well. This could go a lot more detailed, but I want to keep you guys forever, so I'm going to go ahead and do something a little simpler. So starting with these colors, because of course I still am thinking about this being balanced between the two of these. So I'm going to use the darker green color. But what I did find is I like to layer these a little bit. So I'm going to start with a looser watery color and then fill in gradually darker colors. So I'm going to start with some little bushes with like a grayish purple. Start to kind of fill those in around the church. Maybe even like up the wall a little bit and down here. So I'm using kind of a watered down lavender color. Now I'm going to start coming out with some of these wisteria looking shapes. I'm going to let those spill out. And these are going to be big and loose and watery. These will help establish where the flowers are going to go, or where these little bits of flower are going to go, without you having to totally commit to like a really dark color. So it's a good way to test, where am I going to put this next? So that's enough of the grayish purple color. Now I want some green. I'm going to pull the darker green. This green, let me show you this photo again. Whoops, let me show you this photo. There's like this really dark emerald green there, and it has a real rich depth to it, and that is kind of what makes this photo so amazing, because it's so light over here and so dark over here. So even though I haven't painted the background actually that dark, I still want to pull in some of those colors. So I'm going to do that with a lighter green and then get gradually darker. I'm going to grab like a light watery green, and it gives it a little place to sit. And go down like this and just start spilling it over the edge like that. And it's like, oh, there's a water's edge, but now there's, I like this way of composing the painting, because it almost looks abstract because it's sitting on these giant flowers, but yet it's still like perched in a hillside somehow. So I don't know, I like it. It's a cool way of making that work. Okay, so I'm pulling those down. All I'm doing is wiggling my brush a lot and making these really squiggly lines. And I really want them to just curve gradually out and down. This reflection, I just realized I want to add some detail to it so that you can tell it's a reflection. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of the red that we have here. That darker brownish red. And I'm going to go pretty dark on it so that we can really see those details. Maybe a horizontal line will help, even though it's not perfectly reflecting that. And then I think I'm going to do a little bit of purple, even though the angle isn't exactly right for that. Just going to add it so that you can see some purple there. So even though that's not a perfect reflection, adding the right colors is going to make your eye realize there's something going on. There. See that? Isn't that interesting how that works? Okay. There's the edge of the water there. Woohoo! I like that. That's pretty. So all this is drying right now. All of this little bubbly stuff that we just did. And now that it's dry, I'm going to add another layer of it, because the second layer is going to be darker and a little bit more detailed. But since I already kind of established where I want it to be, I'm taking a lot less risk by putting it on there. So these are going to be smaller dots for sure. You definitely want less this time. And oops, and more controlled. But there they are, like that. All the way down. And then I can kind of pile them up around the roses too. I think I want a nice green bush over here. I'm gonna grab some of that emerald green. It seems like there needs to be some green right here. This is a little too white in that corner. And then I'm going to put a little bit over here. Maybe a little bit more over here. It's like there's these giant roses in the middle of the garden outside the church. Sorry, I'm drifting. Trying not to drift too much while I'm holding the phone. There we go. So the green that I'm using for that is brilliant green. I always call it emerald. Sorry. It's an emerald green, and they've called it brilliant, and it is brilliant, but my brain goes emerald every time. Okay. So now you can see those darker colors are pulling out the colors of the church a little bit. And so I feel like I want to have a little bit more of this green come down right here. Maybe just that is enough. Okay, so with that, ooh, that's pretty. And then with that, this dark green is going to start off darker, and it's just going to kind of taper out as it comes down into these little things. I don't even know what kind of plant to call this, but it's like a big bouquet with the edges dripping over the sides. Like that. Aww. I get kind of quiet on these details. Sorry, guys. But I'm just focused. I think that's really pretty. Okay, I'm going to try to grab a little bit of... But see how simple it can be? It can just be a matter of piling up a bunch of dots. That's all these are. They're just dots. So don't freak out. You can be an artist too. Probably already are, and you don't even know it. Look at that. Almost reminds me of Italian. Hi, Tammy. I'm so glad you got to join us. That's exciting. I'm glad. Did you finish your time at the senior center? And did you guys do some art today? That's awesome. Daniel says, so pretty. I want to go there. Me too. I want to go. I want to stand right there and take that picture. So pretty. Okay. Oh, Tammy, so you were late were you late to this or late to the senior center thing? or did you run late? Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean. It was so good to talk to you today. I really enjoyed it. Okay. Pulling this down here. Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, now what I'm noticing is this little area is still a little bit too light. So I'm going to grab some more purple. I think I'm going to add some red to this purple because it's violet, but there's so much of this pinkish red in the painting that I want it to be a little bit more vibrant. Okay, that's about where it is. So it's like a mauve-y red with a little bit of brick in it. And I just want this one to be that color. Let me pull that out a little bit and let that drip down. Yeah, I like that. It might be a little bit more. Okay, now I'm going to go and do, since that has more red in it, I'm going to do some more red over here, and that'll balance that out a little bit. So it's not the only one. Cool. Okay, so that's looking pretty close to where I want it to be. These ones down here don't have anything happening around them, but I don't even think they really need to. You could add some flowers or something if you wanted to on yours. But what I want to do is just darken up the areas closest to these flowers, since those are really tight in there, close to the church building, so it kind of looks like they need more shadow happening. So I'm going to add some dark green and some of the Payne's gray, gives that green the darker bluish hue almost. And that's what I'm going to use in these darker shadows. And again, for these deeper colors, I'm adding less of it, less of them, and only putting them where there's already dark color. So there's that dark. So see how that deepens that up a little bit more. Do a little bit right there, maybe a little bit over here, right up underneath the roses. A little bit over here. I'm going to bring some of these darker colors down. And I'm going to do the same with the darker pinks. I just need to make a darker pink for it. I'm going to make this one a little bit more purple. There we go. And this one can be right up here by the church building. Whoops, a little bit darker. And then we can go more of the violet purple for this little stack of flowers right here. Whoops. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and darken up the center of this flower a little bit more so that we have our darkest colors for sure. And then I'm going to darken up the center of this flower a little bit more to balance that out. So that'll look like it belongs in the same painting. And then I'm going to darken these little reflections. The reflection will be as dark as the painting, because if it's a true reflection, it's going to be exactly the same colors. So I'm going to go ahead and darken that up a little bit there. And that looks pretty good to me. There is on the top of this, oh, thank you, Tammy. She says, oh, I'm sorry, I was missing comments. Oh, late to this one. Yeah, well, I'm glad you made it. I'm glad I'm still painting. Better late than never, right? Oh, she says, that is beautiful. Thank you so much. And she has me on the big screen. Woo! You have a big screen too. I was a little shocking the first time I saw how big I was on that screen. I was like, wow, I'm not used to that. Okay, there's a few details I missed here. There's a blue window right there. I want to make sure I paint in. I'm going to paint that one in as well. There's also, I'm just looking back at the photo for any details I missed. And Tammy, if you missed it, here is the church that we're painting right now. Obviously very stylized, a little different from the actual picture, but still fun and pretty. What else do I need? I'm looking for any details I might have missed. Okay, I think that's looking actually pretty good. So the last thing I'm going to do is add, well, second to the last thing I'm going to do. First, I want to add the sky, and the sky in this photo is a real light blue, but I'm actually just going to pull in the color from over here that is almost like a soft gray, because there's already blue going on this mountain, and there's a lot of blue in the steeple, so I don't want to compete with that, and I just want to give it a little bit of sky. I'm not even going to pull the sky all the way up. I'm just going to water this down and give it a little bit of sky right here. On either side of this steeple. And then down the hill just a little bit like that. And then I'm going to squeeze the water out of my brush and just use the water to fade that out into the sky. I'm going to let it stop early. Like, I don't want it to go all the way up on purpose. There we go, like that. And I think that looks good enough, like that. Of course, that'll need to dry a little bit before I do anything else. So while that's drying, okay, whoops. I'm going to go ahead and erase. I have an eraser, little teeny eraser on my pencil. And it's hard to hold the camera while I erase, so I'm just going to hold it with my elbow. So I'm just going to erase any of the darkest pencil lines. Especially these ones down here where the edge of the water is. Had a big tide line right there, but I think it ended up working actually. Just used a ton of water on this painting today. But look how that looks like a little river or something flowing through there. It's kind of fun. Okay, and then the main areas that I will want to erase are going to be the church itself, because I want to reveal, what does this building look like when all the pencil lines are gone? Have I captured all of the detail of it, or do I need to add any more? It's looking pretty good actually, so we must have gotten most of it. I keep having to roll this up because as you press on it, it rolls down. Okay, I think this is dry enough that I can erase the top area. Maybe not. Maybe not yet. It's a little wet. Sorry that's sideways, you guys. Whoops. Ah! Can you still see? Okay. Erase all of this. Like that. Okay, and then last thing I'm going to do before I get off, and I'm going to also do some journaling, but the last thing I'm going to do for the painting part is add the little crosses at the top. And I don't actually know if they're crosses because a couple of them look like the wind things, but I'm going to make them crosses. Well, yeah, they're all crosses, I think. They're close enough. They're going to be a cross. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm mixing up a real deep blue color. And because I don't have my fine tip brush, but I still want this on here, is I'm just going to do a little dot. This is a trick I figured out while I've been out here in Tennessee. I do a little dot, and then my mechanical pencil has a fine enough tip that I can pull the ink out while it's still wet and make a little point. Oops, I hope you guys saw that. I'll do it again on the other one if you didn't. Okay, so here's what I've done. Take a little bit of, sorry, that is my Peepaw's dog. It's okay. Oh, goodness. He's like the most talkative dog ever. Okay, a little bit of a dot, and then you can take your pencil and just pull it down and then pull it out. And the dot doesn't really show up once you do it that way. I'm going to do one more back here. It's going to be real small. Just do a little dot of color and then use your pencil, pull that down and out like that. And there is one over here as well. I'm making these bigger than they actually are, but that's okay. That was more of a blob. It'll be okay. All right, that'll work. Close enough. When you're art journaling on the go, you go with close enough, and it works really well. All right, that's all I have. I think. Oh, did I miss any comments? Okay, I think I got everybody. Okay, I think that's where we're gonna end it now. I'm gonna do some journaling on this page as well, but I just had to paint this at least in its simplistic form to get that painting done. Let me show you one more time if you missed the reference photo. Here it is. And although this one didn't win the prize, or win the prize and win the challenge for sending in a picture of a church building, it definitely deserved an honorable mention. So thank you, Teresa, for sending it in. Hopefully you'll see this at some point and be able to know that you ended up getting an honorable mention, if nothing else. Thank you, Daniel. All righty. Thank you guys so much. And God bless you. I hope you have a great weekend. Next time I see you, I'll be back in Oregon. So that'll be really fun. And in the meantime, have a really, really great weekend. And I will see you soon. Take care. Bye, guys.